Hi, this is our video. I'm Mana, he's Hans, she's Bianca, and this is Nora.
This is the vertebrate class Aves, or birds.
Have you ever thought about the importance of birds in nature and to us? Well, we are going over that in this video.
Birds keep balance in our ecosystems by recycling nutrients. They do this in many ways, by dispersing seeds, pollinating, controlling insect numbers, and by getting rid of carcasses by consumption. Without them, there would be too many of one species, while others would decrease or even go extinct.
The first topic we are discussing is why they are important. One of the main reasons for them being very needed in nature is because they disperse seeds. The definition of dispersing seeds is when an animal, source of nature, or human activity transfers seeds to another location, making the seeds grow there. Birds, or aves, are a big part of this cycle. Birds have different ways of dispersing seeds, one of them being by seeds attaching to their feathers, claws, or beaks. They also spread them with excretion, eating small berries that have seeds in them. Other ways is by feeding birds, feeding off large trees, and knocking some seeds down. Migratory birds transport seeds up to 300 kilometers.
Birds are important pollinators to many different flowers across the world. Pollinating is when birds transfer pollen to flowers to allow fertilization. 2,000 bird species around the world pollinate flowers. Bees and insects are the most common pollinators, but birds and bats are also important ones. Often, the plants that are pollinated by birds are bright red, orange, or yellow. This is because birds can see color very well, but cannot smell. Some birds that pollinate are hummingbirds, sunbirds, and spider hunters.
A less known significance of birds is their help in designing technology, known as biomimicry. Geoffrey Spedding, an engineer at the University of Southern California, thought about how a bird-like model of a plane could benefit us. The hypothesis was that they would reduce drag and increase lift, which would be a great advantage, reducing fuel requirements. It was found out that the shape of the airplane was, in fact, better at flying, although the form did not enable efficient storage. A more successful example would be the Japanese bullet train, which firstly encountered a slight problem with exiting a tunnel. The pressure was put on the front of the train, generating a sonic boom, which exceeded the environmental standards. It turned out that the nature was the solution. A kingfisher's bill was a perfect shape for diving into the water. It only produced a tiny amount of drag. The engineer's idea paid off, as after the redesigning of the train face, it used 15% less electricity and resulted in a much more silent voyage.
Another way birds are important is how they control the bug population and pests. They highly affect bug population due to bugs being birds' main food, alongside berries and small nuts. Fruit, nectar, worms, fish, amphibians, although this is not their first choice, but more of an incident where they don't get other food. Birds are exactly above insects on the food chain, and that helps with controlling their population. But birds can see when an insect has a parasite or is infected and doesn't need it, those ones, and lets them be.
The warmer temperatures caused by climate change have caused some birds to winter and breed more north than before. Some birds have also faced extinction because of climate change. Seabirds are also struggling as climate change affects our oceans, meaning there's less foods for our seabirds. The great tit is now laying its eggs 11 days before it did in 1940, and this is because of climate change. Translocation is when birds are transported from one place to another. Translocation of birds takes place because it is a way to recover or survive. This is something that is used in order to conserve species in difficult circumstances. For example, when a forest has been cut down or burnt. The aim is to decrease the risk of extinction or to establish a new habitat to improve by diversity in a location. The majority of translocation takes place in the U.S. Translocation, although effective, is risky as the birds may not adapt or survive in their new habitat.
Furthermore, it is ironic how the threat to native birds is another bird species. These are known as invasive species, and they are usually brought to their non-native lands by humans. And even though geographic expansion.
Some of the more negative effects are pollution and the effect on birds. Noise pollution creates problems in the way birds communicate. Birds need peace and quiet for their vocal communication as they talk at lower levels. Oil pollution highly affects water birds. If they come in contact with oil, their wings can stick together and they may lose their waterproof qualities on their wings. Sadly, oil spills can be fatal for many birds, as approximately 500,000 die in a year because of this. Water pollution is also highly fatal for birds, as when they drink water from rivers, big chunks of metal and other poisonous things can kill them. Also, when fish die due to water pollution, birds are highly affected because fish are their main food source for them.
Some birds are under nature conservation. There are 63 bird families under nature conservation in Estonia. Nature conservation is important because it helps protect our animals and make sure that species don't go extinct. Nature conservation also helps to protect animals that usually get killed or hunted. The European Union's Birds Directive aims to protect all of the 500 bird species living in the European Union. Since some birds move from one country to another, it is important that the same regulation is used in all EU countries. That means that if a stork from Estonia flies to Italy, it is equally protected.
If you ever thought that pesticides help you get rid of pests, then you are wrong in the long run. Studies prove that using pest control rids you of the birds who would have assisted in removing the unwanted creatures in the first place. This means that pesticides should only be used in very bad situations. A 2015 study by American Bird Conservancy and the Harvard Chan School of Public Health concluded that food items eaten by the members of the National Congress nearly always contained insecticides.
One of their other uses is as a food source for other creatures, even for birds themselves. Some birds that feed on other birds include owls, falcons, and eagles. They are prey to all kinds of mammals, like house cats. Animals like birds also eat birds due to them being quick enough. Eggs are produced by birds and have nutrients like B12, 8, B2, vitamin A, B5, and selenium. Turkey meat contains vitamins like B12, B6, niacin, choline, selenium, and zinc.
The forest is home to many birds. Their nests and their companions are there. It's their home as we have a house or apartment. In order for us to build a home for ourselves, we need materials. One of these building materials is wood. We get room for the forest. And in order to get the wood and use it in constructions, a lot of trees are cut down, and many forests are being destroyed. But birds live in the woods and forests. So if we cut down the forests and take all the wood out and destroy the nature, birds don't have a place to live in, and they have to leave their home.
Birds' home and resources are being taken away due to deforestation and logging. About 80% of the world's forests have been taken down, taking away birds' homes and food sources. Birds live on and inside trees. They feed off of insects that live inside the tree bark, and they also feed off fruits that come off those trees. Many birds are killed in the process of taking down trees, and not knowing that birds live there. People are oblivious to the lives of these poor creatures.
According to the European Commission, 43% of Europe's birds are either threatened or their numbers are decreasing. Conservation and protection is still needed. EU's Bird Directive is important since nature conservation can be done efficiently only through international cooperation. It creates special areas for protection of birds and also limits hunting of birds. But most people have probably never heard of this, and an important thing that should be done more is to raise the awareness and educate people about endangered birds and what happens to birds. When people are more aware of the risks, they can do their part in the protection, be it on a small scale or when planning to build industries or roads.
It is really important that birds live in a healthy and safe environment. They provide benefits to us people, and animals, plants, and so on. Sadly, a lot of people do not care about the importance of birds in our everyday life. It is getting worse and worse. 1,300 species of birds are threatened globally, and about 200 birds are critically endangered. Birds need help, and only we can help. But to help, we need to understand the importance of birds. There are people who understand the importance. Every year, in a lot of countries, there is celebrated International Migratory Bird Day. It is a different date for every country, because birds do not migrate everywhere at the same time. International Migratory Bird Day is to bring people's attention about birds and bird migrate and to celebrate the birds migrate. Many people try to save birds and help them because they understand the importance of birds. But not all international bird days or laws help them. There has to be done something more to help them. One way to help birds is by reintroduction, and it is already done. A very rarely seen bird is taken away from the nature and is put into the reproducing to save the species. After, when there is enough species companions, the birds are taken back to where they belong to, so they can live their bird life and be free. What is really important, they belong to the wild. They're not pets. Their home is in the nature. That's not it. There is more ways to save birds and to help them. Another way to help and save them is captive breeding. Out in the world, there are many birds who are almost extinct, so people help them so they would not get extinct. The bird is catched and put into a zoo or a big cage, what looks like their original place where they lived in. But in the zoo or cage, there are not other animals to eat them, kill them, or harm them. They are kept safe and taken care of. They are given food and water, and if something is wrong with the bird, the people can help them right away, so they live longer and not get extinct so fast.
In conclusion, actions are being taken to conserve birds, but more can be done. The investment in bird conservation is much higher in developed nations than in developing ones. In many cases, it is the more undeveloped countries in the tropics who have the most biodiversity. It is important to help the birds of Estonia and those of other countries as well. Fortunately, organizations such as the Global Environment Facility, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, and many others do this.